this is a really exciting opportunity, I think, that the LEP has given us to get together a group of different experiences and skills and backgrounds and so on within business to really learn from each other and share those experiences and skills in a fairly closed, small group. When I sent out the invitations initially, I didn't know how many people would be up for it, but it was really well received, and I'm really excited to see the group that we've got here. And I hope you don't mind, it's a little bit unorthodox, but I'm actually going to take part as well as one of you, because I just feel this is something that I could learn from and get a lot from, and especially after meeting Peter and engaging him as our facilitator, I just felt that the way that he will facilitate this action learning program, this process of getting us all to share all our experiences, to share our concerns, our issues, the things that keep us up at night, and how we can learn from each other as rather than just in a classroom or online classic learning. It's real learning. It's not about the theory, although some of that will no doubt come into it. This is really about what's happening on the ground and sharing our experiences. So I'm really excited about that. As I said, it is a LEP funded programme. So as I've already explained to you, there are some forms to fill out, but they're not too tedious. And I think it is important because when we look back in a few months' time at the end, it'll be interesting to see where we all started. And it's a record for ourselves as to what we've learned, what we've picked up, and what we've shared as well. So I think it's really important that we do that. It was always envisaged that this would be a virtual programme because of the pandemic and the situation we find ourselves in. There was a hope that towards March we might be able to meet in person, but obviously after yesterday's announcement, nothing's going to change very much until Easter. But together with some other chambers that are running this programme, we're hoping to put on a bit of a graduation after Easter where perhaps we could all meet together. And it'll be nice to catch up, and hopefully we'll build a rapport with each other that will carry on sharing and learning from each other in the future as well. I'm sure Peter will say that it's important that we do contribute, and from what I know of everybody in the group, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think we will all be hang on, Adrian's just joining, that's great. I'm sure we will not hold back. We're all pretty experienced speakers ourselves in one way or another, so I don't think there'll be any problem with that. And to get the most out of it, you need to put more into it. As classic, that's standard for everything, isn't it? The more you put in, the more you gain. So I'm sure that'll be understood. So morning, Adrian. You're on mute, Adrian.
Good morning. Apologies for being late, not a good start.
That's all right. I was just welcoming everybody on behalf of the chamber. But and just to say that we're recording this, unless you've got any objections to that, we won't be sharing it outside of the group. But Susie Cumberland was supposed to join us, and she's not very well at all this morning. So if we record it, then she can pick up on it afterwards. And also it'll be useful for any of us in the future if we want to go back on it.
Of course, just to say, I think the Plymouth and Devon Chamber of Commerce is probably the best chamber in the United Kingdom. And Stuart Elford is just an amazing person. I think he's fantastic.
No, you just spoilt it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So well.
I thought you should get paid.
Great.
Well, we should have a discussion about that statement.
We've got a voting system here somewhere.
Yeah, we can run a poll. Yeah, don't forget I work for him.
Well, now's the time to share then, Helen. Please feel free.
Spill the beans.
Do you know, it may well come out. But but no, generally I can't complain at all. No. Right, let's move on. I'm going to introduce you to Peter. Peter's going to take, as I say, I'm actually taking part just like the rest of you. So other than this introduction and welcome now, I'm going to hand over to Peter, who'll be leading all the sessions. Peter, I'm sure, will tell you a little bit more about himself. I did send you a biog for you to check him out beforehand. And I did put it out to tender. We had some very interesting responses to that. And I hope you'll agree that in Peter, I've engaged somebody that is really going to challenge us, that's going to lead us in our conversations, and be a kind of facilitator that will bring out the best in us. So with no further ado, I'll hand you over to Peter and hope that his internet is settling down.
It is, Helen. Thank you very much. I can see all of you now, and you're all looking gorgeous this morning. So look, Bob's even got a tie on. That's good. I haven't seen a tie for a while, Bob. What's it like?
Horrible.
Excellent. Well, we'll spend a little bit of time just kind of getting to know each other to start with before we rush in, and then we'll have a chance to try out the process. And I'll probably be a little bit kind of not controlling, but a little bit more bullish early on to try and get the process established so that we all begin to get increasingly comfortable with the way of communicating. So in the spirit of the introductions that I invited you to make, if I kick off with my own now. So apart from you knowing my name is Peter Coxon, Coxon by name, Coxon by nature, I'm also, Adrian, a sailor. And one of the things that you wouldn't know about me just by looking at me is I'm actually planning on a trip to St. Petersburg up the Baltic this summer. Being well, we'll see if it happens. But it's in the footsteps of one of my childhood heroes, Arthur Ransom, who wrote Swallows and Amazons. So I've been rather addicted at all the sailing throughout my life. He actually, there's rumor that he was a Russian spy. I'm not planning on defecting, but that's my hope for the summer. If I just say something about my hopes, as I mentioned in the email, what a fantastic opportunity we've got here for people who are clearly committed to wanting to make a difference themselves, but also to sharing ideas and learning from fellow colleagues. And I think that's a really rich opportunity that we've got. One of my fears about the program, the Zoom makes it harder for us, of course, but we're getting increasingly familiar with somehow finding our voice, not interrupting, not dominating, but looking for an opportunity. I suppose my worst fears would be, like they would be in any group, if I find that people are just switching off or looking on their phones or making a quick email somewhere or other. So I'm going to invite you to very much stay focused. I'm just looking to see where Sam's gone. Stay focused in the group for the time we've got. If we need some time out because there's something urgent that's got to happen, if you can wait, we'll find a little break halfway through. And if you really got to, then please just flag up that you need to. Preferably flag it up in advance so that we know that you're not just walking off because you're bored or something. So that's part of the kind of ground rules that we'll touch on it in a moment, I suppose. But yes, that's enough about me. I'd love to get a chance to hear from everyone in turn, just a quick introduction about themselves, something about what they do, bit of hopes and fears, and something we wouldn't know about you. So who'd like to kick off?
Go on in.
Yes, that's the stuff.
I'll
Go
dive
on.
in.
Morning, everybody. So my name is Dave Meadows. I run an animation and video production company in Plymouth. Been going for about 15 years. Used to work for ITV and then decided to step out in 2005 and go it alone. And thankfully, still going. So I'd like to learn from my peers' experiences and to help my business grow, really, to see what you guys have been through and to hopefully kind of gain some knowledge. Because obviously everyone's gone through different kind of experiences with their businesses. I think my biggest fear still is the size of the steps ahead that I've actually got to take to achieve my goals before I'm 55. That's my aim at the moment. And the one thing that you wouldn't know about me by looking at me is that I used to babysit Robert Plant's kids. So, you know, from Led Zeppelin. So that's my opening one. So there you go.
Excellent. Thanks, Dave, and thanks for kicking off. Come on, who's next?
Yeah, I don't mind going next. I was going to vote for Sam to go next, but I'll go next.
Yeah.
And Dave, I could tell that you used to babysit Robert Plant's kids just by looking at you. So I know it says Andrew on the screen, but I go by Andy normally. I think my mum set up my IT, which is why it says Andrew. I run a Devon-wide charity called Young Devon, and we provide housing, mental health, skills training for young people across the county. To give you an idea of scale, we house about 150 young people a night across Devon who would otherwise be homeless or in care. It's been, oddly enough, the year started as a good year. We were rated the 48th best charity to work for in the UK in 2020. And I think the 49th best company of any kind in the Southwest. So we kind of started the year on a high and it went very quickly downhill from there. In terms of my hopes for this kind of process, I guess for me, I always think I could learn a lot about productivity, and that's both personal and organizational, about how we get more out of limited resources. Particularly this year, I could learn about resilience and leadership. I think we've done, and certainly other people tell us we've done really well through the pandemic, but it's been exhausting. So even if it was just how to recharge and do it all again next year, I think there's some learning there. In terms of fears, I'm always a bit guilty of it's never enough and not knowing when to identify success. So knowing when I've done a good enough job, and I guess that's always an overriding fear. And in a room like this as well, that my experience in running a charity won't be particularly helpful to the experience of somebody running a business. So that's always a fear. Something about me you wouldn't know just from looking at me. In a previous job, I used to spend quite a lot of time at one or two of the palaces in London, but yeah, I am a staunch Republican.
Very good. Thank you, Andy. Who's next? Tom leant forward.
Yeah, I'm happy to go next if that's good.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Tom Lavis, recently appointed as CEO of YMCA Plymouth. So you have another charity in the room. I've been working for the organisation in one guise or another for the past 24 years. But predominantly in education, in actual fact. So my new role is definitely a new challenge. I think what I'd really like to get from the sessions is support and greater networks to help move myself and my skill set forward. And naturally that'll then, you know, kind of go in towards the YMCA and move that forwards as well. My fear around the sessions, I suppose this is with anybody new in post really, is time. And I don't mean that in any disrespectful way at all to the people in the room, because I appreciate you all giving time. But it is a fear of mine at the moment, how much you've got to give alongside prioritising all the other things. And then you add the current climate into the situation, and time's precious, as you can imagine. And also, just to give you all a heads up, my son's school was closed recently, so I have a 5-year-old running around in the background. So if I'm on mute, it's purely because I'm drowning out his noise of Lego being thrown at my head. So I apologise for that. So if he pops up in the camera, at least you know why. Just lastly, something about myself. I suppose the thing not many people know is I nearly didn't end up working in this country. When I finished uni at 21, I secured a full-time job in the States. And I was offered a permanent position. And sadly, at the time, my mum got very, very ill. So I came home. Thankfully, she was okay, married in the end. But at that stage, I decided to stay. But yeah, it was very much touch and go that I was going to be working stateside. So yeah, there's a fact not many people know about me.
Good. Thank you very much, Tom. Who's bidding next? Steve? Yep.
Yeah, I've already unmuted. Yeah, good morning. My name is Steve Warren-Brown. I'm the MD, founder of YGS Landscapes. But I've just formed a group set up as group structure. So we're now called the Your Greener Solution, of which YGS Landscapes is one of the companies. Been trading for 33 years. I know you don't believe that. But I'm hoping on this course, primarily, I'm hoping that I can, I don't want it to sound like a cliche, but Andy, I know Andy very well, and he'll know I mean this when I say it, but I want to be able to give back. I want to be able to share those experiences. I've been through some pretty challenging stuff. So primarily, I'm not being conceited when I say I'm not here to learn, because of course I am, but my prime aim is to try and help people there, because I realize it's a really challenging time. And ironically, for landscaping, being in the construction industry and also with a green agenda on the planet at the moment, we're actually flying. And I sometimes feel quite embarrassed about that fact. The fear I thought about, and I've got quite a few. One of them is I don't, because I'm been self-employed for quite a while. I'm a doer. I like to get stuff done, and I find that I get very frustrated with. I've done a few jobs recently with councils, shall we say, and I get very frustrated with bureaucracy and excuses and wishy-washy nonsense. I just want to get it done, and I don't want to come across as being forceful or arrogant, but it's my nature, and I guess that's possibly one of the attributes as to why I've been able to survive through the years. Obviously, Andy is going to wipe the floor on this with me, but my other thing is that, as he's already demonstrated, he has a very good sense of humour, but I'm worried that other people won't like my sense of humour. That's a huge fear. Something about myself. Well, obviously, now that we're all sat down, none of you will know that I'm actually a 7'2" George Clooney body double. But aside from that, Donna, you're choking on your milkshake. I actually taught Robert Plant the guitar as well, Dave. I didn't know if you knew that. No.
Yeah, he mentioned you.
Yeah. I guess my funny thing is that when I was 21, I was part of a team that won a gold medal at the Chelsea Flower Show. And I had the privilege as a 21-year-old, and this will show people's age here, of being walked through our show garden with Floella Benjamin of Play School fame, and being interviewed by her when I was 21. I was quite in awe of it. So that's that's something you shouldn't know about me, and if you do, then I don't know how. Thank you.
Fantastic. Steve, thank you very much. I want to pick up on one of your fears very briefly, which you didn't quite be this explicit, but being an action guy, and there's that theme that picked up earlier from Tom about the time. One of my, well, it's not a fear, but what I want to avoid is that this just becomes a chat show, if you like. That I do want it to be action focused, practically focused, but I don't want you to feel like you've got to rush to make actions, because actually some of the more complicated and more challenging problems or opportunities that you're facing, their very nature means that there's no simple solutions. If there was a simple solution, you wouldn't be raising it with your peers here this next several weeks. You would have worked it out for yourself. So if there's not a simple solution, then it will probably require some thought, some reflection, some investigation, some questioning, some exploring, some probing, some challenging, as well as lots of support. And there may well be an aha moment, and someone else might have done something that rings true for you, and you think, oh yeah, a little tip there, that's just what I needed. But the greater likelihood is that it's the process of exploring, getting to the bottom of what the challenge is, and then developing some options then for the problem owner, if you like, to keep owning this issue and working it through to their own satisfaction, so that they've got a resolution that's theirs and that they're happy to take an action on. So absolutely, as Steve says, let's stay focused on, we need to be taking actions, but let's not have that kind of fear of, you know, the flight to action. Let's take some time that's required to explore quite what's the best way forward. So Steve, thanks for that, and for prompting me to mention something as well there. Who's in next? Yes, Sam. Oh, Sam, you're back. Well done. And you're on mute.
Yes, my daughter suddenly woke up, so that's why I had to rush off. And I'm here alone with her at the moment, so I might have to dart off, but I'll be quick. So Sam Snowden, Chief Marketing Officer at Blue Screen IT. We run a cyber security company as well as an IT training company across the UK. I've been with the company nearly 3 years, come April. And in that time, it's been an interesting kind of transition from a culture and an organisational point of view. So I guess that kind of runs into fears, because I joined and I've had a multitude of different backgrounds. Some forced on me, some I've chosen. My last one was a city council as an economic development officer. I joined there as a contractor, and then I had an opportunity to dive across to Mike Deeroff's cybersecurity company as their chief marketing officer in something I haven't got a clue about. So cybersecurity is not my background. IT wasn't my background. So massive fear entering a marketplace full of people who are very highly advanced in technology. And for me, obviously having to describe what that is to business, but obviously that works to my advantage because hopefully I'll speak in the same language as everybody else. But my main fear, I guess, is that the company is growing very rapidly. We're looking to open up a new centre in London, and all of the things which come with that in terms of organisation, in terms of resourcing, not thinking small, because I've been wrapped up in an organisation which, you know, I'm involved with literally every part of it. I do day-to-day sales, I do the management of sales. So I feel like the guy who digs the holes, fills the holes, gets the materials, surveys it, signs it off and everything else. And I'm just starting to build a team around me again, just from a cash flow point of view. So there's lots of things I've got to either relearn or learn from the start again. And that's one of my fears, is the speed that takes and making those right decisions and organising myself enough to ensure I advance quickly, and not kind of just stumble on decision making, and make sure I make the right decisions at those critical times. And I guess something that nobody will know about me unless you're in the sea at Wembury, but I've just started doing open water swimming, and it's freaking freezing now, but I've been doing it since June, and it's been an amazing experience. And it was a wonderful thing at starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, going for a swim just before work, and just kind of just energizing yourself before you jump into any meetings. It's a valuable experience I've learned this year. It's kind of just get away from everything, freezing yourself, and then sticking yourself in this situation. I haven't done it this morning, anybody, but yeah, it certainly kind of jumpstarts you to kickstart your day.
Brilliant, Sam. Thanks very much. So if you're looking a bit wet next time we see you, we'll understand. Thanks very much. Who's up next? Is that Julie? Yes, I'll take Julie and then Bob.
Okay, thanks. Hi, I'm Julie. I'm the operations manager for Jeremiah's Journey, the children's bereavement charity, based in Plymouth, although we cover larger parts into Devon and East Cornwall. It's our 25th year next year, believe it or not. We had some massive plans for March with a big party and everything. So everything's gone on the back burner with regards to that one. One, just because of the pandemic and obviously the effect that's had on our finances as well. So my background is quite corporate, usually within the health and education field. So coming into charity work last year, I'm sorry, I've lost this year already. Last year was a massive change for me. It is so different to working in a corporate environment. For those that work in charity know and have tasted sort of like everything that's in a box and organized and everything, and coming to a charity where it's not quite as clear cut as that is quite a change for me. My fear, I think, really is not think I'm good enough to do what needs to be done for the charity, that I can't pull it out and let us be big next year and celebrate 25 years. That's my biggest fear. But what I want to do though is just share my experiences as well in this group, if it helps, as we go along, and to give a little bit back, because that's what I like to do. And that's the bit about charity work that I love, is the fact that we can give back from all the rubbish that we have to put up with in the background. It is so nice to see positives with what we do. What would you not know about me? I have been known to sing and dance on stage a long time ago, but as I'm now not quite as graceful, I've taken up doing stupid sports like Tough Mudder and body combat. So in which case I can just throw my arms around and not worry about how graceful they look. So that's where, but that was confidence back then. Now it's confidence hidden behind a few punches now, I think. So but that's where I am, and I love the humour so far that you guys have brought so far in the introductions. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie, very much. Bob, you were in line.
Great, thanks. Hi everyone. I'm Bob Paniaides. I'm the commercial manager at Mount Kelly, the independent school in Tavistock. I am in charge of kind of effectively two businesses that have kind of merged together, which is the enterprise arm of the school and then the swimming arm of the school, which is effectively a leisure centre. I have been here since January, which has been a little bit of a whirlwind, given what's happened this year. And I'll start with one of my fears. That's really one of them, that I'm new to leading a kind of business like this. Previous roles have included kind of larger operations director of a language school in London, this kind of thing. So I had a lot of experience of kind of day-to-day stuff, but not actually making decisions, right, but what are we going to do now type thing. So one of my fears is really, what have I got to give to other people? But I'm sure there'll probably be something that I've experienced that someone else hasn't. And likewise, the hope is it's another voice. Unshared experiences, I think, are fantastic. So something that I've done that I think is second nature to me might be completely alien to someone else. And likewise, I'm looking forward to getting those things that are completely alien to me from someone else. And there's a number of different kind of backgrounds and people that work in charities and businesses and that kind of thing. And I think that's a great mix. And I think there's going to be nuggets of gold in there as well. Something that you won't know about me with looking at me, I've never drunk a cup of coffee, so I won't be dashing off to put the kettle on. No real reason why, just don't. I presume I don't like the taste, don't really like the smell. Likewise with tea, so it's pretty much all hot drinks that don't go down very well with me. And I'm in this tight because I'm in the office, and because the school's open, that's why.
Yeah. I thought Bob was just gradually getting around to telling us he only drinks cold drinks, which is a precursor to telling us he was an alcoholic or something. But I don't suppose Sam's not going to be coming up to see you because your pool's too hot for him.
Yeah, well, yeah. It probably is.
Bob, thanks very much. Who's up next? Who's next? There's Tim, go on. Unmute.
Trying to get me finger to work. So I'm Tim. I have 5 jobs. First job is I'm the father of 4 children from the ages of 21 to 32, and it is chaos. The second job I have is once a fortnight I drive a community bus called the Coleridge Bus. It's been going since the 1970s, bringing old ladies in from the outskirts of Kingsbridge, which is where I live, which I really enjoy. It's a great charity. I am the treasurer of Kingsbridge Rugby Football Club, which is two companies. So we run a bar and a restaurant, employ 30 odd people. So I have to do the payroll and the company accounts for that. 3 senior teams, 900 kids playing over the weekend. Well, you see that team. Our best team is our girls under 15, which 2 years ago were the national champions. So that was our girls team. I'm a director of Devon Chamber of Commerce on 3 committees as well as the board, which takes quite a lot of time. And then the last thing I do is run a business called Start Point Finance, which is a commercial finance broker that I established in 2007 in Manchester. We relocated down here in 2011 and basically started again. We have gone through a bit of a tough time. So sadly, I've had to make 3 people redundant. 90% of what we do at the moment didn't exist 4 months ago. So we are in a rapidly changing environment. So one of the fears I have is how we adapt as a business to the changing market. I've been in finance for 34 years, and I've never experienced anything like it. What will you know about me? I'm a gig rower. So I row gig boats. I row every day. So either on the rowing machine, sadly rowing machine at the moment because we're not allowed to go out to sea. Last year I had a knee replacement, but managed to get back into the Devon Super Vets rowing team.
Very good, Tim. Well, I'm impressed. The thing with super vets in rowing, you can still be quite young and be a super vet, I think.
Well, that's right. Well, they've now got another class at 60 plus.
It's a mega. I'll be back in that boat soon. Now they've got that older class. Fantastic. Thanks very much, Tim. And we're going. Where are we going next? Yes, go on, Donna.
Morning, everybody. I'm Donna Barnes. Most of you know me, or know of me, I'm sure. So I am joint vice chair with Tim for Devon Chamber. I've been with Devon Chamber now as a director for 7 years actually. So a long time. As well as that, I am a veteran recruiter. I say that because I've been in it over 25 years, and you guys that know recruitment know that it's a bit of an in and out situation. So I think I should deserve a medal for my 25 years in recruitment. Most recently, so I started my own company called Astra Recruitment just over 10 years ago. I think it was fortuitous at this point. It didn't feel it at the time. I closed it on February the 29th of this year. So that was a conscious decision to close it. Gave the keys back to the office, made the staff redundant. And then obviously COVID hit us in March, which was, at that time when I was doing it, it didn't feel the best thing to do, but obviously somebody was looking over me, and it was definitely the best thing that I could have done. Since that time, I also own another company called Selwyn Stevens, which is a recruitment specialist company. So we do search and selection, and we recruit more on behaviours than just high street recruitment, which is more of my passion. The reason I closed Astra was because when I started Astra, my passion was to do recruitment differently, not do it like all of the nationals were doing it. And I had these great ideas, but they didn't actually come to fruition. And I realised the reason they didn't come to fruition is because you can't do high street recruitment differently and make money. It really is a numbers game, and especially within the competitive market that you're going to be in. So I found that out to my peril. I grew really fast, so my company grew to 2 million, 20 staff, 3 within the group. But what I didn't do, I didn't have a solid structure to hold that growth, or even for that growth. That growth happened despite me, not because of me. And I learned really heavily through that, and it collapsed as quickly as it fell. hence my decision to close it in February, as well as the fact that I didn't, my love for that type of recruitment had just failed. So I continued within Selwyn Stevens, and that was my very high level search selection. And then COVID hit us and that didn't happen. And then by pure fluke, I was kind of, I call it smacked across the head with domiciliary care, because I thought, what can I do? This is what's needed at the moment. And I absolutely fell in love with helping people lead a better life in their own home. And so a month ago, my new company, Kintota, was born. So I've just started a new recruitment care company called Kintota Care, and I'm still running Selwyn Stevens International. So those are my two focuses at the moment. So what's my fear? My fear is that, and I keep talking to myself, I'm a believer of inner voices, is that because I failed, although now it's not called failing, it's called learning, because I've learned, I feel as though, okay, what have I got to give? Because actually I didn't do it right, I did it wrong. So that's what happened. But again, I've learned through, as long as you learn through all of them, I know, then you use that within your next thing. So what I'm hoping is everything that I did wrong within my last company, within Astra, I'm going to bring into Kintota and Selwyn and build that to a level of strength. So for me, that's my fear, is that, you know, what have I got to give? Because actually, I don't feel at this moment in time as successful as I could be. So that's kind of my fear. And what people don't know, I have medals, they're in my attic, but I do have medals because I was a female banger car driver. So that's where I used to take all of my vent up frustration. Yeah, so yeah, I used to love it on grass track. So that's how I did it. So, but yeah, so that's me. Thank you, guys.
Fantastic. Donna, thank you very much, and thanks for your disclosure as well. It's something I'll, you know, would want to applaud in any of us, to disclose little bits of our own vulnerability. There's been a theme, a few of you mentioned the kind of fear of not knowing what you can contribute to others, but also a desire to do so. So thanks for that. Adrian, I think.
Good morning. Thanks, Peter.
Good morning.
So Adrian Ragborn, I run a charity as well. Our charity, Adventure Under Sail, is the owner and operator of a tall ship called Pelican of London, and she is used for sail training, so the personal development and transformation of young people's lives. She's at sea 11 months of the year, and we take 15 to 18-year-olds on voyages between 7 to 10 days and 6 months. So probably one of my greatest fears is the fact that she's currently 1 week into a 3-week crossing across the Atlantic on her way between the Canaries and Antigua at the moment. So I look forward to my daily email telling me that she's not using any fuel, that they're having fun, and that wind is good, and that she'll be there on time. My other greatest fear, probably common to some of you by the sounds of it, is that there won't be enough money in the bank at the end of the next month to pay our wages. And that is something that certainly keeps me awake at times. We have transformed over the last 4 years from we probably called ourselves a £200,000 turnover charity on a good day, and we're now just under £1 million. And that probably leads me to one of my greatest challenges, which is recognizing now that we have grown considerably in terms of what we do and the risks associated with it. But I have been very resistant to growing the resource to support that, because of my greatest fear, which is that next month there might not be enough money to pay everybody. What wouldn't you know about me? I have 3 amazing daughters, of which 2 of them are blessed. One has Asperger's and is bipolar, and my youngest daughter is autistic. And it leads me in what I do on a day-to-day basis to have quite an insight into how we're all very different. We all have our own idiosyncrasies, many of which we don't show to other people. You, I'm sure, as you will find out as we go through the next few weeks, I have OCD. I probably am approaching my daughter's level of autism, I guess, at times. But it helps me to reflect on other people, how we are all very different, and how we all have different needs and different things that make us tick. And one of the things I'm looking to achieve from these sessions is to learn from all of you about what you have experienced. Hopefully, some of the the wins that you've achieved that have helped you to progress, but also, as Donna said, some of the things that you've done wrong. I think it can be extremely lonely as a business leader. Everyone looks to you to make all the decisions and expects you to get it right all the time. The reality is, I suspect we don't get it right all the time. But when we get it wrong, there are very few occasions where you can actually say, yes, I got it wrong. Usually you have to say, no, we're absolutely right. We're absolutely right. And you quickly change direction and do something very quickly to cover up the fact that you were wrong. So the more I can learn from all of you, the better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adrian. I think we're all... Helen, do you want to say a little more?
Well, yeah, if you don't mind, because I'd like to just share just to be part of the group. So a lot of you will, in fact, you've all met me in one way or another over the last few years as part of the chamber membership, but you probably don't know an awful lot about me. So my background, I know a few people like Donna and Tom and Sam especially will know this, but my background was sort of nearly 20 years in apprenticeships and work-based learning with the private training providers. Originally, I was in Nottinghamshire, but in the last 10 years, we moved down here in 2010. And so my previous roles were heading up training, assessment teams. The commercial management at GHQ was very much about employer engagement, spreading the word, managing everything from the delivery through to the recruitment of apprentices and so on, and dealing with everything else in between. So I've always worked for fairly small businesses, SMEs, where I'm fortunate that I've been able to have quite a bit of autonomy and been able to manage my own time, create my own culture to a large extent, and so on. So I've been really blessed in that respect. But a couple of years ago, I was ready for a change, ready for the next step. And this role at the chamber came up. Well, it was something that I'd never done. But when I read the job description, I thought, you know what, I think that's almost written for me. I just feel that that's something I could really embrace and make a change. And having been a member of the chamber with GHQ for the whole time I've been there, I'd seen the difference over the couple of years. In fact, just a couple of months before I saw this job advertised, I'd actually said to my managing director, I don't know if it's worth joining the chamber again this year, because we've really not had the value from it. It's a different type of organisation as it has been, and I know many of you will have experienced the same. But I knew that Stuart Elford, who I'd met several times, I wouldn't say I knew him very well, but I'd met him several times. I knew he had taken over as the CEO, and I just felt that there was a completely different management leadership structure in place. So I thought, nothing to lose, let's go for it. And I was fortunate enough to be offered the position. And it became evident on my very first day there that the culture within the organisation was, and it's very difficult in a way because obviously you're members, so I do have to trust you to keep this, but the culture was really quite toxic. That Stuart had made a couple of changes within the team, and I think they were the right changes, but it wasn't a place where I felt, you know, immediately that people were going to be friendly and so on. Anyway, fortunately I was given the opportunity to build my own team, and many of you will have met Daphne and Sam and Olivia and so on since then. And within the first 6 weeks, that started to change. The culture, the atmosphere started to change because we brought in different people. And also, I think because Stuart and I felt very much the same, we had this very same approach of engaging with the team rather than just expecting the team to do what we told them to do and be very autocratic. We were very different approach. We like to build the team. The team is so important, and as far as we're concerned, we can't do anything if we don't have a really good team. So anyway, I think over the last year, 18 months, most of you that have been with the Chamber for a while will have noticed the difference, and you know, membership rate numbers have risen, our events have become ever more popular and so on. So I know that we're doing a lot of stuff right, and I'm really pleased about that. But I think my biggest fear now is how do we maintain that? How do we, you know, we've almost made a rod for our own back in the sense that we're only a very small team. There's so much that we're getting involved in. Stuart and myself strategically, and the other members of the team are getting involved in so many other aspects of our members' lives. And it's fabulous because we feel like we have a place to play in supporting so many other businesses in so many, whether it's just promoting their event or if it's something much more, something like this, putting this together. This is brilliant that we can put this together and provide some real in-depth support. So there are lots of ways that we can support businesses, but I think my biggest fear about that is that I feel quite swamped because there are so many things coming at me from so many angles, and I really want to help. My nature is not to say no, it's to say, yes, let's do it. How can we help you? And then I know that my fear is if I'm doing something, I like to do it well, but then I fear that I won't do everything well, that I'll just pay lip service to things, and then we'll be back where we were a couple of years ago. And that's my biggest fear, is that we have to maintain the business that we've got, the reputation that we've got, and build on it, but with limited resources. So that's it really, I think. And it's the impact on our members then. I think the other thing is to say that our business is a little bit different. We, you know, Tim and Donna and Susie, who can't join us today, they're all board directors. And so they have ultimate responsibility, but actually they don't have much input in the day-to-day. We rely on them for so much backup support and so on, but they don't draw down dividends. They, you know, there's no financial gain for them being directors. It really is voluntary. We've got a brilliant board, and they're yes, Tim and Fraser. Yeah, and they're so supportive. We couldn't do the job without them. But it's, you know, so we've got the directors that have responsibility, and they need to be happy and content that we're running a good job, but also we've got our members that we need to be providing that day-to-day service for. So it's that balance. Right, so what don't you know about me? You probably don't know, but we won the Paul's jackpot in 1984. And we spent it by buying a garden centre. In the late 1980s, we bought a garden centre because my passion has always been gardening, particularly fruit and vegetables and so on. I'm never happier than when I'm up to my knees in mud and manure. let's put it politely. and so yeah, I love growing and eating all my own fresh veg and so on, and that's brilliant. We bought the garden centre. Like Donna, we made some mistakes. We'd never run a business before. We made quite a few mistakes, but also it was in the southeast, and it was at the time of the sort of late 1980s when there was a recession on, and we relied an awful lot on new house building, and around that area, as soon as that recession hit, the house building stopped, all the contracts, the landscapers contracts went and so on. So that's when we had to sell up. So we lost the money we won on the pools, but we had a really good experience. So yeah, that's it. So that and my 4 grandchildren are our passions.
Helen, thank you very much, and thanks everyone for sharing a little there. There's differences, there's vulnerabilities and idiosyncrasies being shared, and there's also quite a bit of common ground. There's a theme about learning. There's quite a theme about learning ourselves or helping other people learn. A theme about education, and there's also a theme in that vulnerability of. I've been reading up again recently about the imposter syndrome, and that's around at the moment more than ever as a result of the pandemic. We're having self-doubt. So do we know what to do? Can we, we've never done it like this before. Who was it said 90% is new or something? Who told me that? Yes, Tim. 90% new this year. My goodness me. That sense of Helen saying, sometimes I'm just kind of overwhelmed. I'm swamped by it, and not just in manure, but there's a fear that many of us have about the future. The good news about this government, I'll try and be apolitical, is that they are supporting this very project, and that is rather wonderful, really. So don't worry about any imposter syndrome. Don't worry that you haven't got anything to contribute to other people just because of your experiences. I think it was Einstein who said, I'm not that clever. I'm not particularly bright. He said, I'm just very, very curious. And I invite you to pull your curiosity gene to the fore during our conversations. Be really interested in what someone else is saying and explore it and dive a bit deeper. And when we're focusing on any one person's particular issue, be looking for, are there links here? Are there connections here? Does this ring a bell for me in terms of what I'm working on, what I'm struggling with? And do make some notes along the way, because those reflections can be lost if you don't. So build in time, that issue of time. I think Tom was saying that. He's got a big clock to remind us. Is it working? Yes, 25 to 10. Is that right? Or you're a bit fast, but never mind, Tom. So do keep in reflection mode. Keep some notes for yourself. We'll invite you. In fact, I think Helen or I will send you out some little action cards at the end of today, just to keep a record of what thoughts are you having about the practical actions. Steve will remind us of that. The practical actions that you want to take. So there'll be lots of reflection for yourself and lots of curiosity for other people. Look to see if there are connections that we can make. I want to just flash up 2 or 3 slides just to put this a little bit more context for a moment. Where's it gone? Here we are. I'm hoping that you can see. Can you see the slides?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay. So very quickly, if I just run through those, you'll have seen these, so I don't want to dwell on them at all, but let's keep, as Stephen Covey wrote in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, with the end in mind. So keep thinking for yourself, where do you want to get to? These were the long-term aims that the program had designed. So keep practical. that issue of resilience was mentioned, the whole kind of post-COVID and the whole Brexit challenge. Keep the long-term picture, your future success in mind. And keep thinking about how you can adapt to this new normal. And there's so many new challenges. I'm describing it as a new business era, really, that is quite different. We're not all 90%, Tim, but many of us have got significant differences that we're having to address at the moment. Keep thinking about, so what can I do now to put myself in a good position to be successful? Let's keep looking at the longer term gains, not just quick wins. And let's look at, as part of that, at our own leadership, our own management, the way we can develop ourselves and develop the people that we work with. And of course, there's a theme from a number of you about, so let's look at, how can we help get technology to help us? And that's all the more important right now, I guess. These are the themes that, again, I sent you, but I just wanted to refresh it. I've kind of put the red stuff up on top because this is being reinforced by some of the other conversations I've been having with people. In fact, coming out, although fourth in the list here, the sales and marketing, when I was asking you for a topic that you'd be willing to raise during these meetings, the sales and marketing theme came out really strong. Something about, the whole future depends on us getting it right out there, albeit in a new cyber world. How do we market ourselves? How do we put ourselves out there? And how do we get more money coming in, essentially, because we're highly vulnerable without that. So perhaps no coincidence at a time of uncertainty that seems to be rising to the top of your lists. And linked into that, there's the whole kind of finance, the whole kind of business model innovation, and what can I do as a leader to move this forward? And there's a clear digital theme to all of that, a technology theme to it. So if I move on one more time, this is what you were reminding yourself of. You do want to learn from others. Fantastic, that's good. I'm not expecting that other people will give you a solution. I don't particularly want you to be giving people advice. My normal response to someone who said, if I were you, I think that was I can hear my dad in my head now. If I were you, the answer to, well, you're not. So try and avoid the if I were you type of advice. Although we sometimes even ask questions in the form of advice. Have you thought of this yet? Which is a question which really means, because that's what I would do if I was you. So just be cautious. I'll try and flag it up in a friendly, loving way. When we do slip into that, I don't want to be the if I were you, please, but I'll try and encourage the curiosity side and the open questions rather than the leading questions that you might get from a lawyer or something. So lots of people talk about, yeah, I absolutely need to enhance my business performance. And there's some themes around about the whole kind of strategic goals, strategic thinking, business planning, etc. And the more we can work with other people, the better. And I think that's what I'm hoping that will come out in this model that we're going to try and explore and try and use, is that it will put you in a better position to be successful with your other colleagues. Hopefully will give you some tools and some processes that will help you to engage your staff in improving the business, help you engaging your staff in getting them to own it and getting them to come up with ideas. I had a builder around here last night, and he was saying, I tried to get my staff to come up with ideas as to how we could build the business rather than just do some building. He said, the trouble is they're not coming up with any ideas. And I was thinking to myself, well, maybe you're not running an action learning set with them, and maybe they're not confident. So hopefully this process that we'll get more and more familiar with, the action learning set, the kind of coaching or mentoring style the curiosity of Einstein. Hopefully that's something that you feel comfortable to take back and use with your colleagues, which will indeed engage them in improving the business. There were some of your hoped for improved benefits then: leadership and management, productivity, surviving, a better chance of surviving. There's plenty of people in this room who are less confident in survival now than we were a year ago. I've had my own self-doubts at times, what's called the corona coaster of emotions. Of sometimes it's going well and you're thinking, yeah, and sometimes the phone doesn't answer and people are so focused on the crisis that they're not interested in long-term planning. So I've had some quiet times, just beginning to get going again. Just landed an interesting piece of all places, in Bangladesh, and I'm so glad that I can do that remotely now, rather than have to travel all the way out there at this stage. So those were your themes coming out there. Look, and linked to that, when I've asked you very recently now, what sort of topics would you want to raise? I've tried to summarize them in this. I may not have done everyone full justice, but I tried very quickly last night and even this morning, just to pick out some of the nuggets of what you were saying. And it seemed that a number of them were coming under the sales and marketing umbrella. Opening doors in the digital age, innovating with technology, developing new things at speed, because we've got to do it quickly, because there's so much new stuff we've got to do, increasing our brand awareness, developing the marketing strategy, expanding, but not taking too much risk. We can't, it's a risky time, so we've got to be very careful as how we balance that. And then there are other themes. There were a couple of people raised the performance management issues, and there we are, the business planning, remote teamwork, the whole kind of workload has come out again this morning for a couple of people at least. It's pretty exhausting, and you've got to go for your metaphorical cold water swim to get yourself going again in the morning, because it can be pretty exhausting. And then there was something about restructuring the whole organization, and although only one person mentioned that, I'm guessing a number of you are thinking we just need to look at things differently, and so much of it is going to be different from our previous experience, hence the doubt. But between us, we can do some creative thinking, problem solving, decision making. Let me just get into this, if I may, very quickly. Then one more question, and then we'll get into some real work. So this is a model that I use, and when I do a lot of kind of executive coaching with people, and also with senior teams of organizations. And this essentially is an oversimplified model that you can read a lot about, and there's variations of it, but it's based on some of the Max Landsberg's book, The Tao of Coaching. And essentially it's saying, so come with your issue, the theme, the topic you've got in your mind. And from that, very quickly, turn the issue into a goal that you want from this session, from the time you've got with your team, with this group here today, for instance, the time you've got with your own coach, because you will all have a chance for 3.5 hours of one-to-one coaching. Be clear on what you want to get from this particular session, rather than, I want to change the world, I want to make a difference. What do you want? What's your goal today? The more specific you can be, the more people can address their brains to help you. So from the goal, we need to explore that goal, dive deep into it, get to the root cause of the problem or the challenge or the issue, in order to perhaps seek a new or a better understanding of quite what it is that you need to be addressing here. So we're really going to spend our time on the right-hand side of this, questioning, exploring, coming up with some hunches, not rushing to the wrap-up. So to every complex problem, there's an easy, quick, and simple solution, and it's invariably wrong. So we'll take our time to explore before then going into the option stage, generating possible solutions. That's not just telling people you'll get 11 other people telling you what they think you should do. It's generating possible solutions in the form of options. Here's an idea. Here's another idea. It's a kind of a brainstorming approach. And that includes some wacky ideas, because sometimes the wacky ones will spawn a different thought. And you think, gosh, if we could make that wacky idea a little bit less wacky, make it more practical, maybe we're onto something here. So we're just going to come up with hunches, with ideas, just to leave the person who owns this goal with all sorts of rich thoughts, and then they can choose and begin to work through into the action plan, which is the wrap-up stage. So that first diagnostic or defining, that's the hard side of this. That's the bit that we typically don't do well enough because we're in that rush to come up with a solution. And we don't do well enough because we may not ask the right kind of questions. You'll know when you've asked a good question. Sometimes the person will say, Andy, that was a good question. And you'll hear them go, yeah. Or you might actually see them go silent because they're thinking. So you want to ask questions that get them thinking beyond what they've ever thought before. So if you ask a question that they know the answer to already, then it's not developing their thinking. It's not diagnosing quite what the problem is. They can just bat it around without engaging their brain and doing any new thinking. So we'll notice as we try this out, the questions that are really good ones. So if someone asks you a question and you think that is a good question, tell them, because that'll be some nice feedback. So the left-hand side of this, the remedial side, if you like, or the development side, that's relatively easy, and that's more positive and energizing. So that should happen with more confidence. Okay, that's, I think, all I want to say on all of that. Do you want to, let's come back, yeah. There, Steve's back in as well. I couldn't see you, Steve, for a minute, but you're there. Any questions at this stage about the process, about what you've heard or read so far that you're sitting here thinking, oh, I'm not sure? Getting a couple of shakes. No, another shake. Okay, so give me a thumbs up if you're just about ready to go. Good, thank you. All right. Finally, before we get into a topic, I'm flagging up. I'm going to ask you to volunteer the topic that you would like to talk about today with your colleagues. And if you don't get in the first one, you'll get a chance to do the second one. I don't know how many we'll get through today. I don't plan to rush it today. We'll get more refined over time. But you'll get a chance somewhere along the way. So I'm going to ask for volunteers. Don't sit back if you think, yeah, I'd like a bit of time on this one, because I do want to make some progress. I don't just want to sit back and listen to other people. So get ready to vote quickly on the batting order. But before we get into that, you will have seen and read a week or two ago at least a charter that was sent out. Do you remember the charter for how we should work together? Does that ring a bell? The kind of ground rules, yeah? Can we just have a quick sense of what would you see as the kind of important ground rules for ourselves as we work together? What would come to the top of your mind? I'll take any bids here.
Confidentiality.
Yep, thank you. I'll take that for certain.
Honesty.
Honesty, brilliant.
Respect.
Can I add in the honesty, that piece that was written down is be honest, be open, but also be prepared to be challenged, to have your thinking challenged, and kind of thank people for challenging you, for getting you to think. Even if you don't shift your mind, you've had a chance to stop and think. So honesty in terms of saying to someone, if you're concerned about their action that they're planning, find your voice, speak up in that way as well. So thank you for that honesty. What else would come to your mind? Sam, say again. Respect.
I didn't say respect, but
Sorry, I misheard you. Say it again, Sam.
I think Bob said respect, but
I said, yeah, respect.
Bob, thank you.
I was thinking more commitment. If you're going to do it, 100% commit.
That's nice. I like that. The thing that would worry me the most is if next time we meet there's 10 of us and the next time there's 8 of us. I'll go and cry in a darkened corner if that happens. So yeah, commitment. Let's give this a real go. I will give you a chance to give us feedback, give me feedback about how it's working and suggestions for improvement. You know, you'll have a feedback model, I'm sure. One of my simplest ones is what I like best about today. Here's a suggestion for how to improve it next time. So please give me. I plan to ask you at the end, so please do. We'll try and make each of these sessions better. So thank you for that, Dave. Any other ground rules that you'd like added in? Okay, we've got the commitment, every session, the confidentiality, the open and honest and challenge as well, the respect. The other ones that rang bells for me is kind of stay focused. I think I touched on that at the beginning. I invite you to stay focused when we're together and do contribute. Don't hold back. It's harder to contribute when we're all on this funny screen and we don't want to be too domineering or anything, and we put ourselves on mute too readily because we don't want background noises and what have you. But do feel confident to contribute. It doesn't matter what you say. Whatever's on your mind, have a chance. If I fear that someone's taking over too much, I'll flag it up. Don't worry about that. But that's not. What I don't want is too many long silences that run the risk of kind of de-energizing us, I suppose. I've talked about be reflective, and we've also talked about. I always look at Steve now. He's the kind of practical man now. You've got that label, Steve. About do take actions. Tell people what actions you're thinking of taking. Take them, review them, and share the progress. Or indeed, as Donna's given us permission, share what doesn't work as well. So good. Thank you for that. So we're now at the stage then where we can't put it off any longer. Let's have a go, a nice gentle go at this process. So we need someone to volunteer to raise their first priority topic that they'd love to have some time to think about and share and explore. Yes, Sam's got his hand up. He's coming into bat first. Do you mind?
Weirdly, I didn't even want to put my hand up, but I just thought you've got to commit. Yeah. If you're going to say commit, then
yeah, that's right.
I've got to die by that statement. Setting objectives, realistic objectives.
So that's your theme.
Yeah.
That's your issue.
So I've been looking at OKRs, objective key results. So something that Google, Spotify, all these kind of tech companies use.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they say, the objective has to be inspirational. So stretched enough that it does actually force you to try and push yourself, but not underwhelming. It's easy to reach, but the key results is based around stats that cross-reference your ability to make it. So it could be a financial goal, it could be a time-bound goal, it could be a development goal in terms of, certainly within technology, there's kind of stepping stones of technology where you want your design to be. So it could be a release of something, or I don't know, reduction in something. So it's always has to be wrapped around a figure. But I don't know if that's the right way to go. I'm reading it because I'm involved with a tech company, but I just wonder whether anybody else, how they set their objectives. And the other part to the OKR system is you do it on a quarterly basis. So you only set 3 objectives within those 3 months to properly drive you forwards, but it has to really steer from the top. So what Google says the CEO's objectives is transparent to anybody who works through the whole organization. So the whole organisation is working towards a guy at the top, rather than everybody having separate objectives and shooting off at different tangents. But I'd be really curious to know how other people set their objectives within their workplace.
Good, Sam. Thanks for kicking off. So that's a good issue for you to raise, and one that I guess we can all relate to because we're all in the business of setting objectives. What I want to do now in process terms is keep you focused on what you want to get from this session. And the danger is you could just be, because you've kind of asked the question of everyone else, we could all be answering, well, this is what I do, this is what I do this, you do this, you know, and you'll get lots of other people's opinions as to what they do, rather than help you with your question, your challenge. Okay. So can I invite you to convert this issue into a goal for this session? What do you want to get out of your takeaway, if you want?
Yeah. Okay. So for me, yeah. So my objective is to, I guess, from a sales point of view, increase our turnover by $1 million, and then I want to work out what key results I need to choose to get there.
Okay, I'm making notes here. So what I heard is we want to increase our turnover. Then you said a figure, and I don't think I heard the figure necessarily.
By $1 million.
$1 million, yes, I thought I heard that. So quite a big goal. You talked about being inspirational and stretch, and I'm imagining that might well be quite a stretch, and that you want to work out what key results you should be pursuing.
Yes.
What key objectives, if you like, to achieve that exactly. Yeah. Okay. So is it key results or is it key objectives?
So I say, so I've got an objective there, reach $1 million.
Yes.
And then I've got time bound that.
Yes.
Within the next 12 months, I'll put.
Okay. So I'll deliberately be hesitant at times, checking that we've understood what your goal is for this session. That might be slightly irritating for people in these early stages. But what I'm hearing, Sam, is, okay, I want to work out a plan or an objective to achieve an increase of 1 million in the turnover.
Yeah.
And I want to know what are the key results I have to book in, or make happen in order to achieve that. And one of the elements is within this 12 months. So if that's what you want to get from today, a plan to increase the turnover, and that plan has got some key results in it or key objectives in it. And if you get something in that direction today, that will be a useful thing for you.
It would.
And I can imagine that. And anyone else thinking, well, I know what I've got an objective and I'd like to know how to go about that, how to plan that. So that will relate to many people, I think. So this is the time now where Helen, was that a wave or did you just?
Yes, I was just going to ask Sam, so what proportion of your current turnover is that? So what increase would that be? Is it doubling your turnover or tripling it, or?
Pretty much double. So we've got a new centre opening up in London. aid us. At the moment, we've got a training centre in Plymouth, and we've got a security operations centre in Plymouth. And in January, we're just about to open up a one in London. So it obviously opens a much bigger regional access to our services and a new market for us.
Yeah, I just thought it gives us an understanding of where you're standing and how much more. So if it was a 10% increase, that would be different. You're looking to double your.
Yeah, with new site, new market, well, much bigger market than being based out of Plymouth.
Good. And Helen, thanks for having a go at asking a question. Please feel free to be like Helen and just ask a question in your curious mind.
Sam, you say that you want to increase by £1 million in turnover. Have you considered, or have you put a target on your increase in net profit as opposed to just turnover?
So that's a really good question, actually. we are literally, because I'm trying to sort out commissions and understand what. So yeah, but it's such a good question, because that is a debate we're having internally in terms of sharing transparency of profit. So ideally, because I've got to set up commissions and I'm trying to bring in people, and the commissions is based on profit. But I know what you're saying is rather than focus on purely turnover, because net profit, because we could work bloody hard and make no extra profit. It just goes all out on costs.
Yeah, and I'm actually talking from experience, because like you, my Astra, my vision, my focus was, I want to be a £2 million turnover organisation. What I didn't focus on was actually, this is how much profit I wanted to make rather than the turnover. And as my accountant always said to me, turnover is vanity, net profit is sanity. And I now really focus on that, because that was my focus previously. So that was one of the mistakes that I actually made.
Yeah, I'm just typing that down, Donna, in terms of the key result, because that's one of the things I need to kind of pin down, what net profit I want to generate out of that turnover to make it worth even doing.
Yeah.
So we see it all the time. We spend our working life looking at accounts and tracking businesses' profitability and actually, more importantly, their cash flow, because what kills businesses is lack of cash. You can be really profitable, you've got fantastic accounts, and you go under, and sadly, it happens all the time. And Donna's spot on it. It's doing the work around the true profitability and trying to make it as scientific or in depth as possible. So you're splitting your income, because you may have different income streams and different profitability as a result, but also putting all your costs, property, asset, infrastructure costs, because frankly, if that doesn't, and I put a load of work into that first, because if that doesn't hang together, then you put all your efforts into a journey that gets a result that actually can kill a company,
Yeah.
Can I ask a couple of questions, Sam? One's Andy here. One's sort of checking an assumption. If £1 million is roughly doubling your turnover, you've done it before, yeah? Because at one point you were £500,000.
That's right.
Yeah. So the first thing would be to say you've done it before. The second thing, I guess, is what do you see at the moment is the biggest barrier to that?
Resource, because at the moment we are at maximum resource with the individuals we got in the team, me, and 0.5 with somebody else. Technology we use within the operation. So at the moment I'm looking at a CRM system implementation to streamline how we support the customer experience coming through. How we use data in a way that ensures that we get easy sales, so repeating customers, and how we look at the lifetime value of that customer, because tying in with what Donna's saying in terms of profit, it costs hugely a lot more to attract new customers and service your current. So how we use data within the operation. Yeah, so I kind of it pins around that, and I guess, you know, one of the things is, as a growth company, you know, from a management point of view, how we deal with that growth outside of where we're working right now, because we've entered this world of remote working, work from home. So some of these team members are going to be that. So it's just how we manage that resource once they're in place, and who's to say, you know, they're going to be the best for that. So
yeah. I think that's really interesting, because you've got a really clear picture of what those barriers are, and to me that started sounding like a set of key results that you want or need to put in place.
Yeah.
And particularly the ones that were some of the, you know, in my world, some of the interesting ones there were, how do you get the people to go along with you? Which is another question which you don't need to answer right now. It's just an open question.
That is a case in point, and that's one of the. It's an area we're trying to develop, and certainly listen to Peter earlier about Einstein. Is how you get people to come along with us on that journey, because we've always been a Plymouth-based business. So it fills me with utter excitement about moving into a big city, where others it fills with massive dread, because the whole culture of a family business, I call it family business, we're going to move away from, and how that reflects on their day-to-day life as well. Day-to-day life as well. Because some of them are going to have to instruct in London, so they're going to have to, you know, move away from home for a week, 2 weeks, and they're not used to that.
Yeah.
Although,
and I guess my last question, and I'll shut up, is almost that: how if you're going to double your turnover, how disruptive are you prepared to be in the organisation along the way to do that, and how disruptive can you be? And you've started describing some of that already.
Yeah, so we call it risk register. I don't know if anybody else uses that, but these are things we're getting pressed on. So one of the things that we discovered after we won an award and got quite drunk, and then my boss then invited me to go and see Google the next day. No, Amazon the next day, AWS services. And it was a nightmare, because I weren't feeling great. We had no sleep, and it just looked like we'd just come fresh from the street. So we wandered in, and then we met the Amazon executives, and they were so straight-laced and focused, like laser focused. And we're just looking at them through blurry eyes, and they just said, "Right, guys, what's the risk of us doing things with you?" I'm like, Jesus, what a day to ask us these questions. But coming out of that, through that fear factor, talking about fear, we just thought, right, we need to really kind of get ourselves sorted in terms of that risk register of disruption, because that's what they're asking us. You know, what if, then that scenarios. And and as a cybersecurity company, we run through these scenarios, but you run it through a risk register for cyber, but actually from a business growth point of view, and reflecting kind of how your business is set up. That is an area we've got to plan out.
At least you were honest with them. Hey, you showed them who you really were.
yeah, like party boys. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So one of the things that it's worth doing at times when you're working with your own teams to try and develop some learning is to recap where you got to every now and again, because it's hard for people just to hold on to everything, and sometimes our thoughts kind of run away with us. So what I'm hearing so far, Sam, is apart from the turnover thing, you need to look into the whole profit issue. That's become a critical thing. You said that's a really key question that's been raised.
It is. Yeah.
The whole kind of resource component to it, and how to bring people with you, so that the human resource that you've got, what's the risk that they don't want to come with you, they don't want to see it as a big business, etc. You were mentioning some other things in the resource as well, and I don't think I captured that particularly well. I got the sense there was you and half another person.
Yeah. Driving sales at the moment.
Driving sales, yes. And then you talked about the CRM, and then you talked about wanting to try and get better at retaining customers rather than having to seek new customers.
Yeah, growth through retainment, because we know that's a less cost activity than there is driving for new sales. We're looking to employ a data scientist to join our team, which again is a very fearful experience because I'm bringing in somebody who's much brighter than I am. And I've been very honest right from word go, because I thought that works much better than me in terms of saying everything is hunky-dory. To give a carte blanche to go, look, what is our, like a gap analysis of how we use data within the operation to better make decisions. Because I was always taught when I was at Business Link, you know, manage by facts rather than just gut reactions. At the moment, a lot of it, I would say, within our operation is gut reaction rather than, you know, by facts. So it's how we drive data out of what we do, which is useful. Is you know, it's what's something key I'm trying to focus on at the moment, and bringing this individual in, I'm hoping will help us do that.
Is it, Sam, also worth looking at doing things differently? So could you identify another company based in London that already had clients, was in the field, but didn't have the cybersecurity part of their offer? So you could potentially take a different approach to the same, and that could be collaborative, it could be acquisition. You know, you could potentially hook into a load of existing clients, cybersecurity is massive, isn't it? And for me, it's one of these things that's going to come because we're all going to be, if we haven't already been ripped off. So it's a coming wave, and if you've got the skill sets in your business, but there are other IT businesses that have the customers, it might be a different way of doing it.
Yeah, so I'll just put that from a business model point of view.
I just want to make an intervention, if I may. Tim, I love the fact that you're engaged on this and you're having ideas. I want to put your suggestion on hold because it's more of a solution question, and it's a leading question actually, which is kind of saying, if I were you, this is what I'd be looking into. Okay, so if you'll accept the challenge, hold on to it. Thank you for your smile. And let's stay a bit longer, just exploring. So what the reality of this challenge is that Sam's facing, and then we'll get a chance once we think Sam's thinking, yeah, actually, if I can sort this and this out, then I can make progress. Then we can start coming in with all sorts of options.
So, Peter, I just wrote down there what is our business model in terms of reducing our risk. So that could be through acquisition, that could be through partnership work. So at the moment we're coupling up with a large college, so we won't have any costs in terms of space. They're giving us that. We can tap into their current database of clients, and as we know, colleges have a very rich database of clients in the area. So it was one of our kind of strategic tactics, I guess. But one of the things I'm duly aware of is a huge culture change. If you've tried to work with colleges before and sharing their customer base with our customer base and all of that sort of stuff, and moving them from education to commercial training and services will be also a big challenge for us, and how we deal with that side of it. And I guess the fear for us is, okay, you know what, there's some good money to be made out of this. We don't need these guys. We'll just use them as a model to learn and then move away. So we become kind of their test pilot. But I've written down what is our business model as kind of a key priority for me to kind of look at, listening kind of Tim's great solutions, but taking it back one step and going, Sam, what is your business model to de-risk, you know, spending money? So
excellent. I think Adrian, you're gonna
Sam, it's Adrian here. I just wondered if we might take you back a step. Who made the decision to grow into London? When did they make it, and why? And perhaps the last element of that is, and what's it going to cost you? You've talked about the college bit, but yeah. you opened by saying you wanted to grow by £1 million. You were opening a new centre in London. So who made the decision, when, and why, and what's it going to cost you?
Yeah, so who was our CEO? Mike Deeroff. When it all started 2 years ago. So it's quite a complex relationship with a number of parties who are on board. So it's a collaboration. And basically, we did a pilot program 3 years ago where we built a pop-up security SOC, which we took in individuals who wouldn't ordinarily you'd interview. So ex-hackers, hard to reach, ex-servicemen, so people who don't have any IT background at all, and transition them through into a cyber position. So sorry, I had to kind of tell you kind of a background on it, but so that highlighted in the London city to say, look, these guys down in the southwest are piloting something quite unique and nobody else is doing in the UK. So that raised a lot of questions around the House of Lords. In particular, Peer decided that he liked what we did and could we move that model across the UK? And then partnerships started springing up and people saying, well, you know, you need this in London, you need this in Manchester, which obviously gave us an amazing opportunity then to kind of pitch ourselves. And then we've got a college involved, we've got national crime agencies. So we got kind of the pillars of cybersecurity kind of behind this. So structurally, is that the right word? I guess partnership wise, you know, we're looking strong, but it's the structure I'd say is a bit which we need to kind of properly sound out and get right, because we've got to shift our company up into London. So that was a who, that was kind of the why, because it opened up the market. So when we test run it in Plymouth, it's been a massive challenge, because cybersecurity, although it's important to people, it's just how much are you going to invest into cybersecurity? You know, is the marketplace here got them funds to kind of invest into any great shakes beyond kind of doing what you need to do, if that makes sense? So if I took it into like the physical world, you know, so you have locks on doors, you have fences, and then you get into TV and monitoring solutions, then you have security guards, then there's different tiers to cyber. We deal with the monitoring side of it, which is quite expensive for businesses, where you get the IT support companies who deal with your kind of day-to-day security. So we were finding that within the Southwest, we weren't getting the client base to get the SOC running. So our model was turned to saying, well, if we can get it into London, then virtually we can run the security centre from Plymouth, so it'd still be the headquarters, and we can build the intelligence in Plymouth, but we feed from customers which have got a richer pool of money, you know, the banks, the insurance companies who do invest into higher levels of cybersecurity because they can afford it. So that's why. What was the other question, Adrian, in terms of what, why, and how?
What is the cost of moving into London?
Moving into London. So so we've got the kit sponsored. So the actual technology is sponsored by somebody. So that hasn't been a cost. Space-wise, we're not paying for, because it's a joint venture with the local college. So for us, it's manning. So it's putting bodies in there to run the SOC. So, and that can be anything up to kind of 250 grand in terms of labour costs, because cybersecurity analysts are expensive. So we'll put apprentices in there, but when you start looking at managing SOCs, those guys want you know, between 45 and 75,000 pounds, just to give you kind of an idea, as a kind of team leader, section leader. So they're heavyweight costs, but it's underpinned by using apprentices and the technology to reduce those costs. So I reckon we're about I would estimate about 250 to set it up.
Yes, Julie.
Hi. Yeah, it's sort of like going back on what Donna said earlier on about working on profit, not the turnover figures or trying to achieve those. What would be your strongest profit maker in what you're trying to do? And would that be something that is one of your key objectives? Because obviously that's going to be your security, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so training is highly profitable, as people pay kind of £2,500 for a week's course, and we put 10 people on it, so over a week we can do 25 grand with a trainer stood in front in a room with the laptops and everything else wrapped around you, which we've already got. So that is highly profitable. You know, you could run 4 sessions and turn over 100,000 in a month, so quite easily. Security wise is a much more long-term game. So it's because you've got those returning customers, you've got those repeatables every month, but the investment in promoting yourself. So coming back to a point where Tim, in terms of business models, I think partnerships, and that's what I'm looking at the moment, is to work with IT support companies, because they've got a client base, using their client base and white labeling our service to go in. So one of my key results is to look at how many, what they call them MSPs, do we need to really sign up to make this profitable for us? Because you've got to spend so much on your technology to run your operation. I can't remember how much that is, but it's a fair chunk of money, as you can imagine. And then how that cascades down to say, okay, it's a bit like a restaurant. How many seats do you need to sell in the restaurant before you kind of start making profit? My CEO has that information. That's what I'm trying to drive out of him at the moment, to kind of get those sales figures for us, for me to be able to then get myself and my sales team kind of going, right, this is what we need to do. But revenue lines, you know, I think training is a highly profitable area for us. It's within a college. We do a military resettlement program, which we've been doing for 16 years. And it's much closer to central England, where these guys can get to us. Currently, you know, that's probably a £500,000 stream for us. And I'd like to see that move up by £500,000, just through accessibility, because they have to come to Plymouth to, you know, take on that training. COVID has been a massive challenge for us because we haven't been able to open up classrooms. So we've moved to online learning, which is kind of part filled that space for us. But that hit us hard. But on the flip side of that, we end up winning an International Innovation Award for changing our business model quickly. So yeah, long, yeah, I'm gas bagging, I know. So profit wise, training very profitable. I think security on the long term will be really, really profitable. Consultancy, massively profitable, but we're quite early. Certainly our experiences in the West Country, you know, we haven't seen those huge profits, if that makes sense. But I think once we start moving across the country and start winning bigger business, then we'll start seeing the profits in that.
Sam, it's Adrian here. Thank you for. Can I just check something? And Peter probably will stop me in a second for erring towards a solution. But I just listening to you just then, I think I heard you say that you could generate 1.2 million just by running training sessions, which seems to me to be answering the question that you put right at the beginning. So my question for you is, what's your pipeline like? So actually, how many training sessions have you got in place? So you've opened up this place in London because there's a demand. So what is your pipeline of training for the next 12 months?
Very good question. So we haven't opened it yet. So we're just planning the courses which we're going to be running from London, so I can start promoting. So generally want a 3 months lead in time for that. 1.2 would be, you know, be every week of training in the year, which we wouldn't currently do, because obviously with bank holidays and Christmas periods and stuff. So we've probably got about 10 months of operation in terms of generating that income. But we can do multiple training sessions at the same time. So not just one course per week, we could run 4 courses per week, so that could highly fluctuate. Training can be delivered on customer sites as well, so we get private classes which we end up having to deliver as well, and also sizable MOD contracts which we occasionally win, which we've just delivered 250 courses of ITIL across the UK. So pipeline wise right now for London, I would say is zero, because we've literally just got the contract signed off. So although the talk's been going on for 2 years, I've been waiting for that kind of wet ink on the page to say yes, you're allowed to go in and start delivering.
So it sounds like Adrian spawned that question, or spawned the answer of with another question from Sam, which is, how do I develop my pipeline? That's going to be a key part of it that Adrian's kind of recognised. Bob, you wanted to come in with something, and then I'll see if there's a couple more questions, and we'll do another little summary of where we've got to, and we're looking to maybe just take a 5 or 10 minute break to re-top up, not your coffee obviously, but whatever else you want.
Yeah,
Bob.
Yeah, Sam, question for me, obviously moving into London's, I would presume, is a very different environment than what you're doing down in Devon. So when moving into the kind of the big partners and business kind of model that you're talking about, do you have the right structure and the right staff? And I think probably the right people in place to run that satellite site in London. Do you have that structure in place in order to grow? Is probably a question I'd ask myself before I kind of get too deep into pipelines and that kind of thing. Is that person correct? Is the model of the team leader and apprentices, is that going to work in that particular field in an environment in London? Or yes, it works down here, but is it going to work up there? That's kind of what I'll be questioning. Yeah,
we are questioning that model, because I think we need that experience in the team, because your credibility is only as good as your last job. And I think also from a training perspective, and it's moving people with us to start operating at the next level above, because it's a much different, place being in Devon and close to home, to then certainly trying to deliver stuff from London from home, and and dealing with 2 or 3 different relationships who could be feeding into that as well. So you're working alongside a college and our skill sets internally. So yeah, so I think from a key result point of view is looking at our team, and they're kind of really doing an audit on those skills, ambitions. I'm sure I'm missing off some stuff at the moment, but that's probably because I'm lacking coffee right now. But yeah, how do we do that audit? So how do we de-risk, moving these people in? Because at the moment, we're 100% going forwards. There's excitement around, doing that side of it from a director's team. But I'm very aware of it, because I dig the holes and fill the holes as well as an operator. There's times where I go, God's sake, my director's a bit of a dick, and it's me, I'm not really getting huge amounts of support because he's off doing these other things over here, which are dead exciting. I mean, there's times of day-to-day stuff, and I think I put it in there, Peter, in terms of some of my actions. It's how I deal with that relationship between the two. And then Bob kind of feeding back, it's in terms of that training side of it. I do look at our training team, which is quite young at the moment. And I've kind of raised it that we do need a really good centre manager who's kind of got that experience to help us move our training, certainly from a next level as well as the SOC. That's my, I guess that's one of the key results we need to put in there is, one, measure the level of ability. So somebody said to me, they might have the capabilities, but are they capable? Or are they capable? Do they have the capability? They are capable, but do they have the capabilities now? Type thing. If that kind of makes sense. Yeah. Okay. We're like, oh, good question. We don't know. They're all enthusiastic, but yeah, do they really have the skills to kind of do it?
Fantastic. Thanks, Sam. So they've got the enthusiasm. I just want to try now. What I don't want to do is overforce a model onto this rich dialogue that's taking place, but I do want to see if we can make some connections. So if I try and do a summary, Sam, of what we've been hearing, what's been coming out, and then invite you to kind of restate your original goal. So your your original goal was you want to plan to increase your turnover by $1 million, and therefore work out the key results that you need to put in place. Since then, what we've been touching on is there's a big question around about net profit here. There's an issue about customers and retaining customers. There's an issue about your people, all of your resource, but your people. And there's some culture challenges if you collaborate or get into partnership with other people. So there's a whole kind of people theme there. There's a question about your business model. Yeah. Is the business model right? Because you're wanting to reduce, to minimize the risk or reduce the risk. And there's a question about getting the structure right. And then there was a question about developing a pipeline, particularly we touched on that in terms of a key profit line, which is your training. So those are the themes that are emerging. So I'm hoping in terms of the model, this is getting perhaps a better or richer or deeper understanding of quite what the challenge is. So do you want to put in your words, and if you can start it with a how-to statement, I'd like to know how to, and see if you can articulate it now with whatever thinking's going on for you at the moment.
Can you just give me an example when you mean how to? Well, I'm sorry.
Well, when you said your goal for today was to increase, you want a plan essentially to increase your turnover by $1 million.
Yeah.
You don't want to increase the turnover by $1 million in this session, but you want the beginnings of a plan to do so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I put that as a how-to question, you'd say, I want to know how to increase my turnover by $1 million.
Okay.
Okay. And by drilling into, so what might the key components of this be? We've touched on, there's a profit issue, there's a people issue, there's the risk issue, the business model, the structure, and the pipeline, some of the things around. So I'm just wondering, and I don't want to force things onto you, but I'm giving you the opportunity to think. So where are you in your thinking now as to what you want to get from this session?
Yeah, so I think, and that's where this questioning back to me has been quite useful, or very useful, not quite useful, very useful. Because I just wonder whether that key result of $1 million is a wrong thing to focus on, and profit needs to be at the centre of that. It's part of that aspirational statement, and then kind of picking up in terms of how I set my key results as well, because there's financial, there's time bound, there's people development, which I wanted to include into that, aligned also with kind of de-risking in terms of doing that risk register. And I quite like, I think it was Andrew who said to me about how far I was willing to be disruptive, and whether I can put that as a kind of a key result, but I don't know how to, in terms of measurement, a factual figure, or I'm just trying to think how disruptive, is that in terms of how much turnover we lose, or how many people we might lose, or, that willingness to be disruptive to kind of get to point A. So it's getting me to think about that in terms of, factual setting, in terms of, how far we're willing to go.
Sam, can I ask, who is in charge of the cash?
My CEO.
So so cash is not a problem.
That's such a good question, and we do have these debates. So at the moment we're in a position where we're raising cash and investment. We've got some heavyweight contracts which have come through. which we're working on, about to roll out in January on top of this as well across the Southwest region. So
because
yeah.
if it's not a question, absolutely brilliant, crack on. But as long as somebody is got their head around it.
Yeah, so the makeup of our board. So we've got 2 new board members. We've got a guy called Rob Misselbrook who's come in, who's like an investment guy.
Good guy. Yeah, good guy.
So we brought him on 2 years ago. So he's working with my CEO. I call him CEO and Chief Executive and Chief Financial Officer, and he's kind of kept the finances to himself. It's been my mission from before I even started. Because I'm a true believer, if you're in the board level, you need to know what financials are and those bits, as a part of this group, to be transparent. I've never really seen those apart from when I've been putting in bids. So we do raise those questions all the time. How much money have we got to do these things? How much money have I got to invest and get the right people into place? Or are we trying to shift people around? And those key results in terms of some of those targets I've got to aim for. Because if I don't have the cash to be able to employ high level skills, then the business plan's got to change in terms of what I do, one, internally, and then time bound, how long that's going to additionally take, because there's all these knock-on effects then.
Well, absolutely, because it'd be good to know if you've got 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months cash to see it through.
Definitely so, definitely.
And then you sell a load of things, you incur a load of costs, you don't get paid. What happens then?
That's the other bit, and certainly when you work with enterprises, the lead-in time on some of their pay is huge. I looked at one the other day, and it was 60 days.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, we'll
familiar.
do the work now, and then we get paid in April or something.
So,
but it's a chunk of money, yeah.
So let me just recheck with you, Sam, because and then the drinks should be ready. There have been some very useful questions you said, and it's shifted your thinking more towards looking at how do we make more profit.
Yes.
And that question itself begs some more questions and begs some different ideas. And as soon as you get into that, Tim's champing at the bit in that regard as well. And it may be this is just one example of it. May be where when you're talking about whatever you're talking about, you might start having a relationship with one other person in this group that seems like it may well be increasingly valuable. And it might be that Sam, for instance, as just an example, might say to Tim, I'd love to talk you through this a little bit more offline. Would that be possible? And Tim goes, no, bugger off. I've got the time.
Of course it'd be possible, and sadly we don't charge a fee either.
Yeah,
wow.
Exactly.
So that's a business model I like.
Yeah. So it might be that you'd like to pursue that further offline, and it might be that any one person in this group might be asked by another person, would you be willing to be my peer coach? And let's spend 3.5 hours, and it might be voluntary, or there might be some funding for it. And I'll ask Helen just to say something on that line, if that's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you'll probably all see, that there's also the opportunity to have 3.5 hours one-to-one coaching mentoring with an expert in a field that you particularly need that extra advice and support with. Now that could be somebody from the group, or that could be somebody external from preferably within our membership, because we've got such a huge experience in our membership, but not necessarily. So I can help source somebody. I've already got a whole list of people that sort of lined up for potential support. And there is a bit of funding available. So if you are to provide that one-to-one and you need some payment for that time, then we can look at some payment through the funding for that. So yeah, if you feel that you've got something you can offer, or if it's within the group, or if there's somebody that you would specifically like to have some coaching with that I don't know about, then let me know. It's limited funding, it's not a huge part, but there is some there if you'd like to. So just keep in touch with myself or Peter, with regards to that, and yeah, happily organise that. We need to organise that really by the end of the next session, so that we've got that all booked in.
Good. Thanks very much, Helen. So final attempt to summarise before coffee then. So we've shifted from the turnover issue to actually it's more about making good profit here without putting ourselves at risk. We've got to look at the finance side, the cash and the investment. We need to look at the timescales, and we need to look at the people and the skill development, the new recruits, and the kind of issue of how disruptive are people open to this issue of disruption, because you need to take people with you. So those are the kind of some of the nuggets coming towards how you make a profit. What I'd invite us to do now is take a break. Let's agree how long, and let's be quite tough on getting ourselves back by the time we said. And then we go into the next stage, which is to develop some options for Sam. And this is where you can come up with all kinds of ideas. So do make a note over the break if you want some ideas. Not in the spirit of advice, as I said, but in the spirit of options. Here's an idea, here's an option. And I'd invite you just to land it there. Don't go into heavy explanation. I want to keep the conversations kind of punchy, if you like, rather than, so yeah, here's an idea, full stop.
Peter,
and then
before
Sam can take from any of the ideas and think, actually, there's something in that one. I'll develop it a bit more, but there's definitely something in there, and we'll see if we can help Sam get to a position where he's got some kind of actions that he can take, that he can wrap up and take from this session. Adrian, you were just about to say something.
Yes, sorry for interrupting you, but before we break, I might have missed this, Sam, so I do apologise. But did you mention that your CEO does have a business plan that you have sight of?
Yes.
Right. Okay, because I think that would be quite interesting to hear the headlines of that, because it sort of unwraps this story about why £1 million turnover, because I would expect your business plan to articulate some of the key things that you're looking to achieve and the reasons why, and that might help to explore then some of the options. That's what I'm thinking.
So the business plan has been written for investors. So I don't know if you've written an investor's business plan, but it's for what I've seen of it is very high level. So it doesn't go into kind of huge details.
So by that you mean it's more about return on investment for them. So
yeah,
stick in $500,000 and we'll give you 12% back over the next 5 years, whatever.
You got it. Yeah.
So is there a business plan that articulates why you want to grow into London and where your revenue streams will come from and how much your cost will be and what the profit will be as a result of that?
Kind of yes and no. I know that's sitting right on the fence, isn't it? But because it's some grand ambition to go international. So, it's 5 or 6 steps beyond London. For me, naturally, I see London as the next step, and that's an achievement from my point of view in my position, which we've got to do well before we then look at the 4 or 5 other sites my CEO's looking at across the UK, if that makes sense.
So just following on quickly, if I may. So if you had, let's say, a trust fund yourself with £10 million sat in it, how confident would you be of putting £1 million into your current organisation tomorrow on the basis of getting a return over the next 2-3 years, Sam, based on the business plan that you've seen?
With 10 million to make $1 million.
No.
So if you had 10 million sat in a trust fund, you were looking to make an investment. How confident would you be about investing 1 million now in your organisation, today, tomorrow, with a view that you want to get a return of more than 10% over the next 12 months, 2 years, given the business plan that you've seen?
Cool, that's a good question.
I I think you've answered it actually, Sam.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's a new step for all of us as a directors team. So would I be confident? I am confident. You say between the period of 12 months and 2 years. At the moment, certainly with COVID and trying to make decisions and things being delayed, and where we are at by the end of, hopefully kind of springtime, I see our confidence rising. Right now, we've had to shift our business model already once to adopt to, being at home. So from that point of view, confidence levels, I'm naturally confident, but I'm looking at that business plan. I look at the business plan because I'm a bit of a detail guy, and I'll get accused of looking at the fine detail. And because I haven't done the fine detail, looking at the big overarching plan, I look at it and go, Christ, how are we going to achieve that? Because I haven't detailed out the smaller steps, if that makes sense.
So let me build on Adrian, if I may, Sam, and ask you just to give me a number. What percentage probability would you say you have of achieving this 1 million turnover in the year, increase of 1 million?
That's a good 80%.
80%. Okay.
Yeah.
I bring us back then to a question that Andy asked very early on. What do you see as the biggest barriers? And some of the conversation has brought out some of those barriers. And so the suggestion is we need some solutions to overcome some of those barriers to increase the probability of this being successful.
Yeah.
There's still some risk around. So let's take a break at last, and please come back with some options, some suggestions, some ideas as to how we can overcome these barriers and increase the probability for Sam of this being massively successful. Remembering Donna's earlier question of this is more about profit than turnover, actually, but how to make this
a bit busy fool.
Massively more profitable.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the
just
dialogue
going to say,
so far.
Peter, Andrew, and Adrian, thank you for that. I love being put on the spot, but that's what this session's kind of all about, right? Is
fantastic.
You feel uncomfortable because you kind of want to answer in an executive way, because I guess this is feedback for a group. When people ask uncomfortable questions like that, are you confident? You got to be confident.
I smiled when you said 80% because I don't believe you.
I'm all right with 1 million. It's just what's in this business plan, which nobody else has seen. So
exactly. I think there's some of these things are touching some good nerves here. Okay, guys, by Tom's clock, it's 13 minutes to 11. Can we restart when his clock says it's 11 o'clock?
Thank you. And go write your business plan, Sam. Quick, got 10 minutes.
Good. See you in a few minutes.
Okay.
Stop sharing. Here we go. Let's start firing some things one at a time at Sam for ideas as to what Sam could do to move this forward. In any random fashion? Yes, Tim.
So Sam, I'd have a conversation with your chief financial officer about cash and ask him, has he got a projection, including cash, with costs for the plan? But he may want you to populate costs in terms of staff, and you've got premises covered, you've got kit covered, which is brilliant. But I think you need to put it to bed. Either that you don't have to worry about it because it's done, but it'll be already 4 months down the line. And
okay, good. Thank you, Tim. Who's else has got an idea?
Yeah, happy to.
Andrew and Bob.
So back when I asked about biggest barrier, you described a perfect list of almost your action plan. And your original question was around how do you get your objectives and key results. I'd scribble down that list. I'd pull out, I think there were 6 key results in there. And then some of them are for 3 months, some of them are 6 months, some of them are 12 months. I think that'd give you the starts of almost a key results action plan over the next year. It sounded really good.
Hi there.
Thank you. Sorry, let's go to Bob because he was in the pipeline. Then was it Donna next?
Thank you. Sam, I'd do an audit of the structure of what you're looking for. So I'd have an end goal in mind. I would forget the people that you've got currently. I'd put the structure in on paper first, then look at the people, and then if the people don't fit, can you train them? Can you move them? And can you adapt them and go from there from an operational perspective?
Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Bob. Donna?
Hi, Sam. I would also, I know you're looking at 12 months' time. I would also look at the longer term goal. I know you've got the business plan there, but what I would say is that look and make sure that your structures, procedures and people are all geared towards the longer term goal rather than just 12 months, because you'll get to the 12 months and then you'll go, okay, we need to reassess everything again to get to our 2 million, 3 million. So make sure your structures and procedures are solid for the longer term growth, not just the year's target.
Brilliant.
Yes, Steve.
Can I go?
Please.
There I was at the beginning of all this, and I didn't ever stop talking. I haven't contributed yet, but I've just shared with Tim that I would have done exactly, I was going to say exactly what he said, so I'm glad he got told off and I didn't. I think something that's really important here is about looking after yourself, Sam. So I think having set objectives, I mean, all of us probably set objectives at the beginning of this year that have been completely scuppered. And we've probably all suffered emotionally and mentally by that. So where I'm going with this is I think you need to set your objectives in sort of bite-sized chunks. So I would be looking at this every 3 months. I wouldn't be getting too beat up about the end goal at the moment. You want to set your goals in a way that they're a process to get to the end goal, and don't beat yourself up if you slip a month here, a month here. These are really difficult times. Now my phone's going. I'd also look at, I don't know whether this is appropriate, but R&D, research and development. You're in an environment, you work in an environment which there must be a lot of research on a daily basis going into. So I don't know whether any of your team have tapped into anything like that, but that's definitely something that the government are giving money away for, is research and development. So if you can, and it's not just about succeeding in research and development, it's also about failing, because part of that failure, or as Donna would say, that's the learning process. So research and development, but I'll go back to my point. It's about looking after yourself. So don't beat yourself up if you're not hitting the targets. So that 12-month thing, if it ends up being 18 months, but more importantly, understand it as you're going through it with those little tasks that you complete. Delegate, whether it's delegation, whether it's specific deadlines, just make sure they're achievable for yourself.
Brilliant. Thank you, Steve. More ideas. The more the better at this stage. Sam can sift through. Helen, please.
Yeah, it's quite simple, really. I agree with Steve in many ways. I think it's about setting yourself milestones, and sort of, so whether that's monthly or 3 monthly and so on. So you've got yourself some actions to do. So you're breaking it down almost operationally and looking at where you are in 3 months and then moving it on. And then quite often when you've done that, you look back 6 months and you think, blimey, I have come a long way. But if you're looking at it at the end goal, it's far too far away. It's unachievable. So what you've got to do is break it down into those little achievable steps so that you actually feel that you've got the satisfaction of that achievement at various times, and you can pat yourself on the back for that as you go along. So yeah, I agree. I think it's very much about the milestones, and not getting too strung up on the fact that, you know, you've got to beat this million and it's got to be in 12 months. Your overall aim is that, but as we know, it's very, you know, we all have targets, we all have KPIs and so on, but they're all challenging and we don't always meet them. And it's not failure when you don't meet them, because along the way you probably find that it's organic. Other things will come into play. Whereas if you're completely focused on just that one goal, you'll miss other opportunities. So yeah, milestones I would suggest.
Brilliant. Thanks, Helen. I'm gonna chuck one in if I'm allowed to. Two, in fact. One is, so analyze your current profit What's it made up of? There was a question earlier on about, you know, the training was the highly profitable one. So analyze your current profit, the current profit margin, and then begin to look at in your plan, so what profit could you make? And what are the ways of increasing that profit margin? And there's a cost reduction question behind that as well, I guess. And my other thought is a lot of what I'm hearing is actually what I kind of call you know, the makings of a structured strategic business plan, or what I often refer to which is a results-focused roadmap. And I'll offer a slightly challenging view, which is do keep an eye on the long term, and do be ambitious and determined to pursue those massively challenging big goals. Certainly don't beat yourself up, but keep that in mind, and then get into so what are we going to do this month, the first things first. So kind of do both if you can. And relating again back to the Andy's early question, in setting out your roadmap over the next 12 months, you'll get the detail in the first 3 months, but also keep looking at what are the barriers, what's going to stop you succeeding, what's that 20% or more actually that says it's not so probable, and look at how you can overcome those barriers along the way as well, what you need to put in place. And I can send you something that might summarize that, Sam, afterwards if you want.
Thank you.
Okay, some more ideas, folks. How are we doing on time? 11:10 by my clock. 5:15, Tom. So we'll stop before 5:30 and give Sam a chance to summarize what he thinks he's actually going to go and do next. But yes, Andy.
I think there's something about which is a bit off topic, but about an organisational culture check where you are now. I think there's something for you and your senior team, however you describe it, to sit down and say, look, how are we approaching this together? Because that whole conversation that I think Adrian raised and others have said of, you know, how much sight have you actually had of the financials? What is it really a plan, or is it a sales pitch, for want of a better word? Is that bit of that the only way we're going to get to the end we want to is if we're all sort of pulling in the same direction. So I think there is something about that. Okay, folks, let's just sit down and all agree, a bit like we have, what are the ground rules for how we go forward? And is it transparency on business plans and cash flows? And if not, what's the good reason not to? So for me, there'd be that bit of tackling it all together kind of stuff.
I totally agree, Andy. And I think it's also, as you gather your team together, they need to share the vision as well, don't they? So everybody's pulling in the right direction together, which I'm sure you do anyway.
Well, it's an interesting, again, building on that, Andy and Tim, there's two ways of doing the kind of vision, the big picture stuff. One is you create it yourself and then sell it to your people. Or the other is you have some ideas for sure, but you engage the other people in creating it, a shared vision. And that's kind of arguably up to you to decide what's the best way. But either way, you do need to take the people with you that you can take with you. Notwithstanding, I think Adrian's earlier point that there may be some people who don't want to come on that journey, and that's fine. If you look at what's he called? I've forgotten the name of the guy for a minute. He talks about, first of all, get the right people on the bus, but you need to know where the bus is going.
Yeah.
Jim Collins. Is it Sir Alex Ferguson?
It's Jim Collins, a book called Good to Great. So there's a plug. So yeah, get the right people. Some people might decide, actually, we don't want to get on that bus, and there may well be a place for them still running the Devon office. So look for the win-win. Sorry, I cut across one or two people then.
Also, if I may just build on what Tim and Andy have said, I get a sense, Sam, that there really is a case of taking a step back and for you to be very clear on a day-to-day basis as to what it is that you need to achieve in order that you can feel confident that your board are confident in you. At the moment, I get a sense that there's a big picture and you're possibly chasing from one thing to the next. But understanding what is it that makes your company now successful? What is it that makes it so good? And how can you build on that so that you know step by step what you're doing, and that will lead to an increase in your revenue, an increase in your profit. But there is a danger otherwise that you get to the end of the year and say, well, I haven't achieved £1 million turnover increase, but what have I done? And that all does stem out of the journey that you're on, which has this business plan underpinning it. And I would have thought, irrespective of what your CEO wants or does or has, there's nothing to stop you from having your business plan that you write and that you get effectively signed off by your CEO that says, this is what I'm going to do. And at the end of the year, I'll get my bonus when I achieve it.
Good challenge. Thanks, Adrian. Other thoughts?
I think on a journey like this, I mean, it's all going back to what Helen was saying about milestones. I mean, when we're doing long-term projects, we very much start at the end and work backwards. So actually do it all in reverse, because then suddenly the enormity of actually what you've got to try and squeeze into those 12 months suddenly comes to light, as opposed to going forwards for it, actually go to the end and work our way back and do it into bite-sized chunks that way around. And actually, I think that sort of reverse way of looking at it suddenly makes you go, oh Christ, I suddenly realised what I'm trying to fit in here. And it's sort of an interesting way to sort of look at it.
Can I just come in again? Dave, you've raised something really interesting there, because I think we've been hung up on this increase in turnover by 1 million a year. Sam, question for you. If your turnover has to increase by 1 million in 12 months, how much does it have to increase after 6 months, after 3 months? And therefore, what does it have to increase tomorrow and by the end of next week so that you're on that path? Do you know?
No.
Don't
Not off the top of my head.
No, don't ask the last question. Don't answer it. But it's a great suggestion. You work it out backwards, and you say, so for 1 million, so in 9 months it's whatever. And is it a hockey stick that becomes impossible in the end? But we stay hopeful till the last month, and then we go, oh shit. Or is it more strategically thought through? Nice idea, Adrian. Thank you. More ideas, more thoughts that are in your mind, but you haven't said them, possibly because you're not confident that will add value. Julie, I thought you were going to say something then, but you're scratching your nose. So any other thoughts, any other words on the tip of your tongue that you've thought or you felt, but you've not said anything yet about it?
Yeah, just about that. Just going back to something you said earlier about engaging with the college culture and that being a new world and so on. I'd say don't be afraid to be confident and bullish there, and use that kind of, this is something we can achieve together if we move together. Lots of people in colleges and education are not used to swift movement, are not used to making massive changes. Which isn't to say they're capable or afraid of it, it's just not the world they live in. And therefore, quite often in education, people are really grateful for someone for taking the lead. So I'd say that's an area where you can be confident and expansive and so on, because the kind of organized, company and the work you're delivering is going to deliver huge benefits to them as a college. If you're successful, they will turn around and say, look how successful we are because we work with them. So
fantastic. Thanks, Andy.
Can I throw a quick curveball into, probably going back slightly too far, but why the physical presence? I know you talk about going into London, but with everything going virtual and going digital, why are you looking at doing such a physical presence in London? Because that just seems to be, I know it's a focus of the business plan, but it's looking further ahead, like Donna was saying, much further ahead. That seems to be something that it's almost being slightly overlooked and just getting focused on literally having a physical presence.
Okay, this is where I want to make an intervention on process. Dave, turn that why question at this stage, turn it into a suggestion. Just leave it as a suggestion.
I'd say, yeah, well, I would go virtual with it.
Good, great. That's it. Then Sam, you don't need to answer this. The danger otherwise is Sam, Dave asked a great question. Sam goes off and explains it all. We have a 5-minute monologue dialogue between the two about whether or not we should, and that takes up a lot of time. There's the idea. Look to do a lot of it or all of it digitally, virtually, or whatever. Good. Thank you, Dave, for that, and thank you, Sam, for not answering the question. Last call for thoughts on people's minds. Going, gone. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Sam, we've come back to you now and say, so where are you at in your thinking? What are you going to take away from this meeting in terms of some kind of action that you're going to take?
Well, biggest action, I think, is to get my business plan sorted, so I can get that detail. I think that's a bit of a stumbling block for me because I don't have, visually I've got it in my head, but I haven't got it down on paper and I haven't kind of looked at it beyond that piece. So I think that's very important. Picking up on Tim's point about financials is something which has been on my radar for a long time, in terms of literally looking at it in terms of financials, what cash we've got to do these things, understanding much more of a kind of a profit lines and what areas of business makes most money. We discuss these things, but actually boiling it down and making strategic decisions around how we drive that forwards, picking up on kind of Adrian's point in terms of my successes and understand what the company's successes are to kind of productize some of the stuff that we're doing. Because some of the stuff we do, we deliver well, and then it just kind of stops there, but we don't move it into that product field where actually we could sell it. And also kind of listening to Dave's piece, so we're delivering virtual training, but it's how we shift it from just doing it once into multiple times to increase those revenues. I'll take on board the kind of a bite-sized chunks, having a further goal away, listening to Donna, and then bite-sized chunks, whether we kind of work back to front, picking up on Dave's point, understand what it is we want to achieve here, and then looking back at how we set up. And I think originally when I kind of set this challenge for myself is around these OKRs, because that's one key thing they say is you're going to achieve it if it's in bite-sized chunks. If you try and deliver the whole thing, you're set to fail. So they always kind of say three objectives in a quarter. And that sets you in good stead in terms of your overall end objective. The organisational culture check-in, definitely like an audit check. Picking up on Bob's point in terms of don't be too focused on who we've got right at the moment. It's who we need to move this forwards. Things we're considering, but I need to get that down with the other guys. I think there's a lot of conversations kind of being missed, I guess, between the different directors. We're looking to build a research department. I think Steve mentioned about R&D. Was it Steve? Pretty sure Steve mentioned about R&D. Good. So we're on that cusp of doing that side of it within cybersecurity. So it's another division, just in terms of my thinking. So we end up having then security, we have training, we'll have research, and I think there's another education division as well. So I've got 4 areas of potential revenue streams. So I've got kind of sales and marketing side to kind of generate out. And I think quite obviously I need to plan each of those ones out to say where I'm trying to go with those. I think, yeah, it's certainly taking a step back because I'm in the day-to-day throes of business every day, dealing with, all the inquiries coming through. It's very hard to sometimes sit back and kind of look where I'm actually going and that directional piece. So I need to spend a bit of time on myself, apart from just swimming in half an hour and freezing myself down. I need a little bit more time. I think that's a mission, and not beating myself up because there's times where I could, Christ's sake, you know, working over a weekend to get stuff out the door, going, I'm not achieving what I'm hoping to achieve, because things are just coming in at all angles at the moment because we're trying to grow so quickly. So it's kind of fighting back in the boardroom, I guess, I think is a priority for me, because it seems a lot of stuff's kind of getting dumped in my space, because it's all about communication, it's all about sales, it's all about marketing. So I've got to be very aware of that, and then getting that business plan signed off. So then at least then if my CEO's got it signed off, he's fully aware of what my mission is to achieve his mission, if that makes sense.
Brilliant.
Otherwise he just doesn't know. He's kind of just going, surely I can dump some more stuff on Snowden, because he's not got much on his board.
About the Russian dolls of your business plan that fits in with his. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Sam, thank you for that summary. Gosh, there's plenty to do, but it sounds like some of those things you feel you know that you can make some progress on. So the good news is you've had 11 other brains working with you. Each brain's at approximately 1.3 kilograms. So if you do the maths, that's about 14 and a half kilograms of brain power been working for you this morning. What we'll ask you to do is, when we meet next time, is give us a very succinct summary of what actions you've taken, where it's brought progress, and where you're still stuck on things, by all means. And we may even find a way of just reviewing some of the things that you might be stuck on without detracting from moving on to other people. But Sam, thank you very much for that. Guys, rich dialogue been going on this morning. Helen and I had a quick how is it for you type of moment at the coffee break, and we both felt really, really good. That it's what a lovely group to spend time with, having rich conversations. So I feel rather lucky to have had this opportunity.